Fucking moderating.
Well, just in case anyone stupid shows up.
Okay.
I'm already here.
Okay, we're back. This is Beer Analysis 101, and we're back for our second episode of this little panel discussion on beers. I'm your host, Lee Russell, and I'm joined by my panel here. Basically, what we do is we take one beer every week, and we take a look at it and give our opinions on it, and we try to be concise, but perhaps informative. Who knows? That might happen at some point. But yeah, we're going to be doing Samuel Adams Boston Lager. But before we get to that, we'll introduce the panel. So because he whined about it, first off, Greg, how you doing, sir?
Hello, I'm part of the group of assorted people who can't bother to be named on the promo.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Worthless.
What do I have to do something now?
What's that?
Do I have to do something now? Do I have to tell you about the history, or is that later?
That's later. That's later.
Okay.
We're just doing intros right now.
Oh, then hi.
Greg,
Okay.
I'm going to have to ask you to settle down.
And because he also complains, Guy, how you doing, sir?
We'll see.
Let's see. He's still a little butthurt that he didn't get named.
Then make on your fucking list.
The assorted humans.
Holy wizard glass.
Oh, wow.
You did make my list, Guy. It was just a different list.
Oh.
Okay, next up, Average
Shit.
Joe. How are you doing, sir?
I want to publicly thank you for making the cut and being actually the second guy you mentioned in the promo video. I know how much my channel means to you.
Yeah,
You're right up
It's a,
the albino rhino.
yeah, it's a big channel. It's a big channel. Next off, Chris Lysak. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. Thank you very much for mentioning me in your promo. I am the newest beer tuber on this panel, and the other ones that have been reviewing beers. Sorry, guys. I got mentioned, not you guys.
He's taking
I'd rather
over.
show yours.
I'm actually considering between him and Joe as my heir apparents for King of Beer Tube. Just saying. Just putting it out there.
Oh,
I might have to
putting
make
it
an
out.
actual
he's
video then.
choosing
That'd be
a
crazy.
successor.
And here we have the Black Adder of Beer Tube. Nick, how you doing, sir?
Wish I could come up with a snappy comeback to that, but we're not doing Rebel IPA tonight. We're doing Boston Lager.
Yeah, we're doing Bass and Lager.
Oh, crap. Guess not to drink this shit then. All I can really say is that at least Lee named me first in the last video, so fuck you all.
Whoa.
Oh,
Yep.
shots fired.
It
We're gonna
was,
need
it was,
you to settle
it was a
down.
bit of
Nick.
a yeah, it was a bit of a it was a bit of a pity mention, but I mean, still,
Shut
there you
up.
go. Okay, so we're looking at Samuel Adams Boston Lager from the Boston Beer Company. They were established in 1984, and of course, the Boston Lager is a Vienna lager in style. Now, here's an interesting thing. What is the ABV on all your guys' bottles? Because it seems to vary depending on what version you get.
You could just say it instead of show it to the camera, which no one can see but us, Greg. Great
The
job.
whole 4.
No, I saw it
There you go.
4.8.
4.8 over here.
Because I know in some places it was 4.9. I think maybe
Point
in previous
0.
5.0 for you. Okay, so there's been some speculation that they sort of move it up and down, whether either they've changed the recipe a little bit or they're just in that little Budweiser kind of loophole where Budweiser's really like 4.7, but they just listed as 5. So maybe just that sort of situation. But anyway, mine is 4.8 and 30 IBUs.
So is it 4.8 for all you guys? For all the
Yeah.
Canadians then?
Canadian ones? Yeah. I assume we all get it imported through Moosehead.
Moosehead.
Yeah.
And is it 30 IBUs as well? Standard. That's what mine
Yeah.
is as well, even though it's the 2.2% higher.
I mean,
Right.
4.5. 4.8.
Trying to find my bottle picture from a few years ago to see if it's changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But hop varieties, this is all dry hopped, so it's Hallertau, Mittelfrüh, and Tettang, Tettnager, Noble hops. So the standard German hops that they've basically always used for this recipe. The malt varieties are the Samuel Adams own 2-row pale malt and a blend of caramel 60. And let's see, the production output for Sam Adams, they're currently at 4 million U.S. beer barrels, or 4.7. Is it hectoliters? 4.7 million hectoliters there, and that was 2016. Their production, and of course they have a history of having their the the definition of craft beer redefined in the U.S. to fit the amount of production that they put out. So, bully for them. So this, of course, was named after Sam Adams, American patriot. They used to basically contract brew almost all of their stuff, but I think they now have at least one or two of their own breweries that they do their stuff in. But I think they still contract brew to somebody, don't they? In a couple places.
Yeah, I mean I don't know if they contract brew, but they have the 2 locations in Cincinnati and the other one in PA. I guess technically that's. I mean, I think they own both locations, so I don't know if it's contract brewing as much as they have multiple locations to brew it because for capacity purposes,
right?
And then probably tax purposes and other weird things. Having them in 3 separate states probably helps.
Right, and one more thing I'll mention on this is they have a special methods for their brewing that's more of a traditional European style. They do the decoction. I'm probably totally pronouncing that incorrectly, but the decoction mashing, where a portion of the grains are boiled and then returned to the mash, raising the temperature, and it extracts more starch from the grain apparently and makes it a bit more malty, a bit more rich. And they also have the Krausening, which is a traditional German method of carbonation, where they don't use sugars or other adjuncts. Instead, they put fermenting malt wort back into the fermenting beer to provide the malted sugars needed for carbonation. So it's an older, more traditional German/European style that they use for that stuff. And we are joined by the albino rhino. How you doing, sir?
Good day.
All right. So now we're going to move on to everybody's sort of opinions of this beer. So we'll go through the panel again, and we will start again with Greg. So what's your sort of history of this beer and notes, whatever, and your opinion? Score it to both style and to your own personal likings out of 10.
Well, I have no freaking idea. I know I've had this before. I don't know when. It's been many, many years ago since before I started drinking craft beer. And I like it. I think it's pretty good, damn good. I don't know when the last time I've had a Vienna lager, but I'm just going to put it as this lager as the style. And I'd say it's pretty up there. I'd say it's like a 9 or higher even of a lager because it's just good. It's got a lot of flavor. It's easy to drink. That's what I want. I'd probably give it, for my own personal taste, probably like a 7.5. Could even be convinced to give it an 8, but I'd say 7.5 is probably solid where it's at.
Right on. We'll move over to Guy now. What's your sort of history of this beer, and what are your thoughts on it and your scores?
I don't know. It might be the first time I tried it just now.
What, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Wow, it's crazy.
It's a stingy caramel with dirt. It reminds me of Flying Squirrel a little bit. Not sure why.
Flying Squirrel.
Oh, the barking squirrel.
I'll go
Yeah.
with the 7 out of 10.
Is that your overall just enjoyment, or grading it to style? Have you had enough Vienna lagers where you can even?
I have no idea.
Even,
well, I guess it's
no idea.
I'll jump around like go style. Sure, I'll go 8. I'll go for 7 for overall score, I guess.
Right on.
I guess.
Okay. We'll move to Joe next. Same deal.
You're gonna have to tell me it again. I forgot. No. The history of the beer. I started drinking craft beer in 2009, so this was probably one of the first, I'd say, 20 or 30 craft beers I had. Back then, there wasn't a lot of stuff available, and you could get mix packs. I kind of learned styles by buying Samuel Adams mix packs, Saranac mix packs, because they were cheap. And of course, Samuel Adams being the great company they are, they always put Boston Lager in all their mix packs because why not? it's a good beer overall. Like I thoroughly enjoy it. I like it that it's it's comparable to your macro lagers. It's not comparable to your macro lagers. What I'm saying is in comparison to macro lagers, it's a step up. If you're getting into craft beer and you want a more flavorful lager, this is the way to go. Like it has like caramel tones, biscuity, semi-dry finish, a little sweeter. It's very good. I don't think a lot of us have had a shit ton of Vienna lagers because honestly, there isn't a lot of Vienna lagers readily available, especially in North America. But as for the style, I'd probably give it somewhere in like the 7.5, 8 out of 10 range. It's well made, nothing wrong with it. It's as far as macros go, it's one of the more consistent beers, I'd say. As micros go, macros always consistency. Like people talk about how consistent they are. Boston Lager is pretty fucking consistent, which is nice to know that you're going to go buy a 6-pack of it, a 12-pack of it, or get a mixed pack like I did of the fall beers in the middle of August because yay me. But it's going to be consistent. It's going to be good. Personal opinion, I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10. I do enjoy it. If I see it on draft at a local establishment and they don't have anything interesting, I'll pick it up. Well-made beer. It's very good. I enjoy it.
Right on. The consistency issue with this one, I think when I was doing the little history rundown, I think they've only had maybe like one instance where there was like even like real recall on their beer and that issue was because some of the bottles they were using had like chipped glass in them, and that was pretty much it. Like I don't recall any massive recalls of this beer or anything like for quality wise. So who knows? No. Christopher.
Okay, you guys, I think I mentioned this in our little discussion in the Messenger that this is the first time I'm ever having this beer. I've never had the Boston Lager from Samuel Adams, and after taking a smell of this, off the nose, I get a little bit of a floral hop on here, a little bit piney, a little bit of a sweetness on the smell. In taste, I get a little, pretty low. Light mouthfeel, maybe medium on the low end of the medium mouthfeel there. It's good, I guess. It's not my type because of the floral hops in there. Other than that, there's a little bit of sweetness which I can appreciate, but for me, with the floral hops and the pininess, it's coming down pretty dry for me. So in style, sure. It's a good style, I guess, if you like that style. But for me personally, I'm gonna give this about a 6 out of 10.
All right, cool. Move on to you, Nicholas.
Well, like Joe, the first time I ever had this beer was when I was first getting into craft beer in the first place around 2009. I can't exactly remember the first time I had this one. It was either I brought it back on a road trip to across the border, or when I went down to Boston, either that or I picked it up at the liquor store in New Brunswick. And one thing I do remember about having Boston Lager back in those days is I think I didn't like it at first because it gave me heartburn. Only like that lagers back in the day they used to not agree with me, but now I don't mind them per se. Over the years, of course, it's been a beer that's kind of grown on me, and I do consider it to be a really quite decent lager. Before coming on here, I checked out my my review that I had made a couple of years ago, or actually like 6 years ago now. And actually, that's one thing I noticed is that back in 2011 when I reviewed it, it was like, the fuck was that? Anyway, it was like 4.9% ABV back in the day, so maybe it's changed, but I almost feel like I'm not as wowed by it now. It's like maybe a bit muted compared to what it used to be. Like now, I'm finding when I take a look at it right now, I feel like it's got a very copper coin metallic kind of smell to it, maybe with a hint of toffee. Do you drink it? It's got this dry, dirty, earthy kind of mouthfeel, as well as very big earthy note, like a hop note in the back. And a nice little bit of caramel and bready finish, but it's not quite as flavorful as I remember. Maybe I got it off bottle. Maybe I just have rosier picture of having the beer a couple of years ago, but I still consider it to be a very decent Vienna lager. Compared to the style, I'd say I give it a 7.5. I find it a very, very solid beer. As far as my personal opinion, I'm gonna have to give it a 7. I still really like it, but maybe not as much as I used to.
All right, cool. And what you were talking about there will bring up a question. I'll open up to the panel once we get through everybody. All right, Albino Rhino. We're going to have to unmute yourself there because Chris muted you because you were making weird noises. But give us your...
I wasn't making any noises. My phone made a noise.
Well, it's still you. It's still from you. So...
for me, the first time I had this was back on my first road trip to Pennsylvania, so 2006, 2007-ish. I remember not actually liking it back then. It was too hoppy for what I expected out of a lager. I just, I grabbed a lager. I'm like, I expected to just be muted and tasteless, basically. As a Vienna lager, yeah, it has that toastiness. It has that molasses caramel type of flavor. It has the earthiness. It has the hoppiness that a Vienna lager is supposed to have. Now that I know what they are, it doesn't taste really like any of the Austrian Vienna lagers you can buy at the LCBO or any of the other European Vienna style lagers. But I mean, it's drinkable, and that's all that matters. Would I probably buy it myself? Probably not, but I have no problem at all with the beer.
Right on. So what would you sort of rate it to style and rate it for your own personal preference?
Style, again, it doesn't really meet up with say like Oda Kringer or Kozel or any of the other like European ones that we get here. But I'd probably give it a 6 around the board. 6 for myself and 6 stylistically.
Cool. Yeah, for me personally, I think I first got this when actually craft beer first started filtering into our old NSLC when it was still in a different building, different location. So that was long, long ago when I was still a teenager. We got this. We got Sam Adams Light, and it was pretty unique for its time. Man, I still remember liking it back then too, and I don't think I ever gave it like super high grades or anything like that, but I always enjoyed it because it was just different. I mean, it had those German hops in it, so it had a bit more of a floral, bit more of an herbal, earthy kind of thing going on that you just really didn't taste in domestic beers at that time. Like there really wasn't anything here on the shelves from Canada that was really tasting like that I could get anyway. So I always kind of liked it. Back then it wasn't as expensive as fuck as well. It's way more expensive now. I should make note that
yes,
the one format I can get it in here in Nova Scotia right now is only as a 6-pack of 355 milliliter bottles, and that's $15 right across the board.
And that's exactly what I was going to ask. I think we talk about the actual price point for everyone, because while you guys are all in Canada, sans me, you're also in different provinces. It's going to be different prices too. I was curious about that as well, and I think the viewers probably would be too.
Yeah. So anyone just want to throw out there? Any of you guys have different prices for this?
$3.10 in Ontario for this can.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys, they charge tax in Ontario on top of that, don't they?
Well, it's a hidden tax, so it's $3.10. That's all you pay for, but the tax is
that's all you pay. Okay, it's Nova Scotia where you have to pay tax on, isn't it? I know it's one of them.
Yeah, again, it's a hidden tax. It's already figured into the price, so it's $15 right across the board.
Oh, okay. Either way, they sell in. You can buy it in 6-packs, but they sell it as single bottles. Like if you buy a 6-pack, it's just individual bottles. It's $3.45 a bottle here, and it is a little bit of a rip considering what you're getting.
Yeah, definitely. And so that's something I got to put into consideration here when I'm rating it. To style, I really haven't had that many Vienna lagers. Like, honestly, I think I maybe have had 3 or 4 in my entire life. One of them, I think, is Old Vagina that Rhino sent me back in the day. So I believe that one. I believe that one fit. I believe OV fits as a Vienna style lager, isn't it supposed to be?
It might say it's supposed to be, but
yes, it's supposed to be a Vienna style lager, but it's a macro version of a Vienna style lager, so it doesn't have the whole background.
It's kind of like Labatt Blue being a Canadian's finest
Pilsner. Yeah.
Mhm.
Or
Well, I've had-
IPA.
Yeah. Well, I've had that, and I've had the just had another macro version of it. Probably one that's much more true to style, which would be the Dos Equis Amber.
That is much truer to style. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, taking those into account, style-wise, I think this pretty much sits at like a firm 7. It's not exactly a style that you can really go out of bounds with, and you can fuck up all that badly. Honestly, I mean,
really, you're looking for that toasty caramel flavor, malt-wise, what you get on it, and you're looking for a almost Pilsner-like hoppiness at the back end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I get a little spiciness. I didn't mention like a little, just an ever so slight spiciness. It's cool because it's unique when you're drinking like a lager, even though it's a Vienna lager. There's a nice uniqueness to it.
Yeah. So yeah, for about style, I'd go about 7. I think about 6.5 ish somewhere is probably where I'd sit as just personal enjoyment. And I gotta take into account like just with my overall, just as a beer to buy kind of thing. Price is pretty pricey for a 6-pack. $15 for a 6-pack of this. Not what I would probably be too keen to pick up every time I go to the beer store. So you got to take that into account. I mentioned the prices in the U.S. are much more reasonable.
I mean, I picked up the 12-pack Beers of Fall or whatever today. It was $14.99, Lee. I apologize, but yeah, for a 12-pack. So basically double the amount of beer for almost the same price and more variety as well. But I'd imagine 12-pack of Boston Lager,
$14.99 ends up being what, $20 Canadian?
Yeah, so it's So I mean, it's one of those things where you got to take into account the the exchange rate too. So the fact that it's imported to your country. I know you guys are right above us, but at the same time,
actually imported here, or is it being brewed at Moosehead? Because I know Moosehead did some of their beer.
No, it's still imported.
It says the bottle says brewed by Boston. Well, I suppose that really doesn't mean much.
Yeah, it's brought in from Boston.
Well, it wouldn't have to say on the label itself that it was brewed at.
Well, that's why I was asking. No, it would probably say like most places, it would probably still say Sam Adams, but it would have New Brunswick instead of.
Yeah. This is actually still imported. It looks like.
Yeah. I was just curious because I know they do some of the Sam Adams beers for the Canadian market.
Yeah, and I mean this we were saying before we even started the chat. This stuff doesn't move very fast off the shelves. Like we were all saying, we all pretty much here in Canada have pretty much the same batch, which is the one that's going to expire in October 2017. So
mine's super fresh though, bros. Super fresh over there. Oh yeah,
but it still tastes pretty good. I mean, it's not exactly some super hoppy, blow it out your ass style that's going to go bad like really quick. So I mean,
I do feel though this beer specifically is one that has lost appreciation amongst craft beer lovers over the last 5 to 10 years, just because there are so many styles now and there's so much available. This was a go-to probably for a lot of people 10 years ago, and now it kind of gets lost in the shuffle.
And from Sam Adams at this point.
What's that?
There's so many different styles available just from Sam Adams.
Yeah.
30 different beers out right now.
No, man, I went to the store today to just make a point. When I bought the fall of beers, they had like 3 different mix packs in addition to the fall beers. They had, it's like if you wanted to go to the store and just buy different mix packs of Samuel Adams, I could came home with probably 4 different ones and had 24 different beers.
In order that you would have probably a 12-pack of fucking Sam Adams.
Yes, I would, because let's put 2 Boston lagers in every. I know what it tastes like. I don't want it. I mean, it's not bad, but I don't want it. Just give me other beers.
When I was at the beer store picking up these cans, because they brought 2 over to Chad, I ran into a buddy who I was like, "Hey, do you got any Sam Adams Boston Lager?" He's like, "Yeah, I got to go in the back and get it." And literally, I think there was dust all over the case. And
that's just where they have.
It's not moving it.
That's where they hide the white whales. Those are white whales, Chris. You don't understand.
So he brought them out. I'm like, okay, I just need 4 cans. And he's like, all right, here you go. And then that was it. I was like, hey,
probably last time he's ever going to hear that.
I'm like, hey, I'm like, Nick, you saw a lot of these things? He's like, yeah, no.
Yeah. So this is going to open up to. We're basically going to go open up to our final thoughts on this, and that sort of brings me to the question I was going to ask. For those of you who have had a long history of this, do you feel like it's gone down in quality, or do you feel like it's just because you've had so many craft beers at this point under your belt that your palate has changed to the point where you just sort of take this for granted maybe, and you maybe just taste it differently now compared to when you first had it? And anyone just wants to jump in, they can just jump right in.
Well, it's funny you say that. I mean, I keep an eye on the comments. I see there's a lot of comments and raining on everyone's parade, just not mine. He mentioned that, like, he thought the quality went down years ago, or it was great years ago. Then over like the last 5 years, it went down. Then he heard it came back up and whatnot. I'm ignorant to that fact, because the simple fact of the matter is the only time I really drink Boston Lager is when I do buy a mixed pack nowadays, and have for a long time. For me, I think it's just more palate change and how often it changes for me. I can't sit here and tell you with any kind of confidence that this beer was so much better 10 years ago. It might have been. I mean, they've opened up the numerous breweries in Ohio and PA. They could have issues. Who knows? Like I said earlier, I'm pretty sure as far as consistency goes, it's damn consistent, but I don't drink it enough to make any claims. I just know from my own personal palate over the last 3 or 4 years, it's been pretty consistent to my palate. I don't see a huge difference from now and say 2013. So I think it's more palate than anything else for me. In general, though, I wouldn't be surprised if there is some batch variation. Greg's favorite word there.
I would probably think that it is a bit of both for the most part, especially when you figure just the capacity Sam Adams has now compared to in the past. Like, this beer is available in more than just Canada and the US. So they're pumping out shitloads of this. So I could see the quality going down maybe a little bit, or the consistency going down a little bit, just because as you expand and expand and expand on the recipe, it gets harder to keep it up. And when you're doing it in different breweries all around the country, each different place will have different water with a different mineral content and everything. So you have to do a lot of work on your water. I think it tastes different than when I drank it 10 years ago, but is that because it changed or because my palate changed? I'd probably say more my palate.
Makes me remember here. I believe I'm remembering this correctly, that the British version of this is actually brewed by Shepherd Neame in the UK. It's not imported over.
Nice.
It would have been cool to have a UK guy here in the panel, just with their own version, because it would have been nice to see if that was the case or not. I think Craig Ken Beer Reviews is in the comments, so if he knows or has any idea, throw it down there.
Yeah, please let us know in the comments there, Ken Beer Reviews, if you know anything on your version of Sam Adams that you can get. Anyone else have any sort of final thoughts they want to throw here before we actually do go to comments?
I'm gonna go with that. I think there's a bunch of factors could affect the perception of the beer now versus how many years ago I've had it. I mean, yeah, for one, palate change over the years. I've had a shit ton more beer since the last time I had Sam Adams Boston Lager. So it could have been that maybe I had a rosier picture in my head of having it back then as far as going to do it now. Another factor could be maybe I'm having a fresher bottle and I find that dirty earthiness that I'm getting in the back end of it is more potent and masking a lot of what's in the beer. That's just one variable factor. And then, of course, there's also always the factor that maybe it has gone downhill a little since then, especially considering, as Chad had pointed out, all the expansion they've done.
Right.
There also could be a thing with ingredients too. I mean, you might get technically the same ingredients every year. Like, they probably bring, fucking thousands and thousands of pounds of certain hops that they use in it, and maybe one year the batch of hops just wasn't as good, or maybe it was a lot better.
Even the barley they used
could
be a different hops, different weather circumstances may not have as much sugar content.
Well, yeah, when you increase your when you increase your production, I mean, you got to start sourcing stuff from different places, because you just have to increase the amount of ingredients, right? So
So my final thought on the Boston Lager, since this is my first can of ever having it, I am probably going to dump the other can that I have down my throat. Not down the sink. Don't get me wrong. Settle down. That's a Joe line, by the way.
That's copyrighted. You owe me money.
Exactly. Am I gonna go to the beer store or the LCBO and buy some more of this later on? Probably not. But you know what? I can't guarantee anything. You know what? Maybe my palate will change over time, and I'll I'll go back out and buy another can of this and see if I like it even more or not. We'll see. We'll see in a little bit. But as of right now, I'm not a huge fan of this beer, but that's probably just my palate's new, and we're just trying to get used to all different types of beers and shit like that. You know what I mean?
Fair enough.
I'm kind of the opposite, actually. Like, I mean, I have had it before. Don't remember when, but I kind of had a thought in my mind of what this tasted like, and pretty much that my thought was right. It's pretty much a more flavorful lager, and actually, it's one of those beers. If I'm looking just for a lager, a pool beer, just something to drink with the buddies, I probably will pick this up again because I'm pleasantly surprised by it.
You heard it here, folks. Greg is hoarding all of the Boston lager in the Greater Toronto area.
You want me to send you some? Because I will.
Sure, I'm going to get them. I'm going to get those, Chris.
That's really going to open up the availability of Bring Out Your Dead next year. It's going to be
Bring Out Your Dead's going to be a shelf turd next year.
Yeah.
I like it better than Utopia.
And what about you there, Guy? Any final thoughts or?
It makes me want to try the barking squirrel again.
Barking squirrel, yeah.
Me too.
Okay, I guess we can. We got a couple people monitoring comments. If you guys want to start jumping into those, and we'll cover the comments before we finish off here.
Chris, your call. I can. You want me to read them? Okay. Kent Beer Reviews. Craig says hi, panel.
Hello.
Hi, panel.
Chris responded with hello because why not? Jace Westcott says hello.
Hello.
Good day.
Raining on specifically Greg's parade says just cracked a bottle. Yo, dogs.
No dog.
Jace Westcott has a great comment of, can next week's video lean more towards cutting a wrestling promo? Tilt the camera sideways or get fisheye lens like a 90s skateboarding video?
Hey, we'll see what we can do. No promises, but...
He has a can. It isn't very fresh, and it expires October 2017, which beats the going rate for all of Canada. Basically, sans Greg, who lives in Toronto, which isn't technically Canada. Jace Westcott says 4.8% ABV. He's drinking out of a 473 milliliter can. Yeah. Rating on your parade 5%, just like me. So I guess the American version is 5. He asked if Jace Westcott asked, was this beer contract brewed at some point? We did cover that.
Yep.
Craig Kent Beer Review says it is also an easy beer to get in the UK supermarkets. We had a little issue with certain individuals. I will not read that. Nage 37 says, cheers, Lee. Enjoying Olympia at the moment. My favorite macro lager.
Awesome. Thank you for joining in.
Scott White, who is well known in the beer tubing circuits as being a
Sam Adams guy.
He is the Sam Adams guy. And he says, I'd love to see that. It's an above average brew from you guys. Unlike myself. It is so. Raining on specifically this time Chad's parade, if he's having one. He says, I had Boston Lager back in the day when it was brewed at the original brewery. It was way better. For years, it was undrinkable. Then I heard they stepped it up a bit, so I picked up a can a year ago. Jace Westcott replies, LOL. I don't know if that's in reference to Raining on Your Parade or the fact that he says Rhino possessed, ? When he was having his little issue with his notifications, which I guess Chris cleared up here. Jace Westcott also says it doesn't taste as good as I remember it. I think the can could be fresher, although he does like German hops. He gives it a 6.5 out of 10. Didn't say if that was stylistically, but it seems it's more to his personal tastes. Raining on Guy's parade. I don't know. I'm just done at this point. Yeah, he says it was better, and the bottle I'm drinking now is not bad. The head is better than ever. There's a joke somewhere in there. He says the original batches did not have a major head. Still joking there somewhere, but still way better. So he's a huge fan of the head.
Yeah,
who isn't? And Chad then responds with, "I was going to do BDU, but you effers PG." Says all abandoned me for Lee with a big smiley face. I'm not.
Well, I thought you were doing BDU after this, so shut your mouth.
Yep. Jace Westcott says we can all move to your channel after we're done here. Don't tell us what to do, but that's probably going to happen.
That's probably going to happen, yeah. So.
Yeah, tell us. Actually, if you can conduct us, we don't know what we're doing. Scott Whiteoff says, for a beer company that's been around for 30-plus years, now the beer has stood the test of time, and now with the craft beer explosion, it's almost been forgotten, which kind of what I said. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those beers where in the mid-'80s and in the '90s probably was just mind-blowing to some, but nowadays with hundreds of thousands of beers, it gets left behind, but it's still well made and pretty tasty, I feel.
I'm surprised he doesn't have a job with Sam Adams at this point. He's probably been their biggest spokesperson in BeerTube.
That is accurate. Yes, he is a big fan. With all the new releases too, Scott always gets them and reviews them. So, yeah. Raining on his parade says, not sure what number grade I would give it, but it is drinkable. It was not 5 to 10 years ago. Sorry, you got to rank it out of 10. Sorry, Rain Parade. Like we need numbers here. We can't go on unless you got to rank it. That's how this works. Chad says it is drinkable, nothing wrong with it, but I'd rather drink many others stylistically. Ring Anger Parade agrees with that. Chad is looking for Allison Hannigan pictures. Oh, Willow, I love you. Jace Westcott. Yeah, hey, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Little Willow, I'd get down with that.
Yeah. Jace Westcott with a little bit of a shout out to Guy with toasted orange candies.
He's still talking about Allison. He's still talking about Allison Hannigan.
The Scott White says the ABV also changed over the years when it started with 6% and then it went to 4.5 and now it is up to 5. So you can't tell the difference in the beer over the time, which is I think a fair comment. If you're consistently changing the ABV, it's obviously going to be different in some ways. So I mean, even
this was at 6% at one point.
I guess that's what he's saying. It started at 6%. So I mean, maybe in the 80s and 90s. I don't know if he's still there to specifically tell us when he remembers it changing to 4.5. I feel like when I've always bought it, and it's only going back 8 years or so, it's always been in like the 4.5 to 5 range as far as I can recall.
Yeah, because I know this was a Jim Cook, right? I keep getting him
Jim Cock.
Yeah, Jim Cook, Greg Cook, whatever. Mm-hmm. I keep getting them mixed up. But yeah, Jim Cook, this was like his grandfather's recipe or something that he homebrewed and perfected for his own uses or whatever. So,
yeah. Craig, we only got a couple more comments, so I'll spare you guys the pain that is me reading comments. Craig Kent Beer Review says just up the road, which I think he was talking about the Shepherd Neem and brewing it over there. Scott White also says they have a proprietary grain company out of Washington that they buy their stuff from. If I'm not mistaken, they do in-house roasting as well. Probably should have brought him on for this. I totally forgot about that. Should have made an exception and just been like, here, you just tell the history and everything because, he seems like he loves the Sam Adams. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah. Kent Beer Reviews again, Craig. 4.8% UK ABV. So
there you go.
Similar to you guys. Chris says, good job reading the comments, Chuck. Well, thank you. Jace Westcott agrees and says what he said. Drunken One goes with, did someone say Samuel Adams? My ears were ringing. I don't know what that means. Is that a dig at me for reading the comments?
I think he's just got a hangout detector of some sort. Like it's just ingrained on him now. It's just
Drunken One is, for lack of a better word, the whore of the G Plus hangout community. Nothing wrong with that. Again, nothing wrong with that.
Wrong with that at all.
But he seems to find, like you said, every single hangout known to man. He must be subbed to 6 billion channels on YouTube. And then Scott White finishes with, it changed in the early 90s. So that's probably why a lot of us didn't get the 6%. We were, most of us, not of drinking age.
Yeah. Okay.
And then LOL from Craig and Drunken One because they think it's funny.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess we'll close up. We're trying to keep these fairly short to like 30 to 40 minutes because you don't really need to go an hour and a half examining one beer. It's just kind of pointless. So even with a big panel, and we had a fairly big panel this time out. So
7 people.
Yeah. So we don't know what we're going to be doing next week yet, but we will figure it out in behind the scenes, and I'll release a new sort of advertisement video telling you what's going on for people interested in checking this out next week. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining me here on the panel. It was fun. I think we're getting a little better by increments with each episode. We only had 2 so far, but, still. And thank you, everyone, for watching and sticking with us. And thank you all for the comments. It was a lot of fun. So I think we're all probably going to be moving over to the Albino Rhinos channel here within a few minutes for regular BDU. And, we'll do that. And until then, we'll see you all guys next week. Bye-bye.
How do you like them apples?
See you later.
Yeah.